film that was made out of the Danish film Institute. That was our departure point. In late Fragment, we're looking at the intersections between interactivity and a dramatic feature film, and we created an experience where you as a viewer intersect and play a creative role in creating, building, editing the film as you move along. Essentially, it's three storylines, three characters that meet in a restorative justice process. Every scene has many components.
Yeah.
So actually, depending on where in the scene you click, you're going to move to another component of another scene.
So it's basically you're essentially within the same scene. It never takes you too far away from where you were.
Well, you can go pretty far actually if you keep clicking. Yes. So what it is that essentially in the non-CRJ or therapy sessions, you can choose to click as often as you want, wherever you want. It'll take you in a different trajectory. Once you hit the therapy sessions, you have to click on one of the characters to leave, or it'll continually loop. And we're playing with the idea of that it's like when you're in therapy and you're stuck, right? You're forced to make a choice. And we've married the notion of clicking as an active gesture, exactly. And then if you don't click in the other scenes, then you become a passive viewer. You'll move a pre-designed trajectory that we've created for you. Exactly. Just click that right button. So basically the 3-hour project was edited and very carefully constructed. Yeah. So it was a very massive architectural process. So if you can almost imagine, it's series of towers. That's how we call them. And depending on how you click, you're actually
build a DVD or something.
Exactly. You're moving up and down across all around the towers. So it's been very, very carefully constructed. It's not random at all.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering.
Yes, it's not random. So it's really been pre-designed by us, but with many, many trajectory possibilities.
When you talk about plot, like how do you apply it to something like this, where there's obviously several different plots?
Yes,
right?
We're following the stories of 3 characters and their lives. So each one of the characters or narratives do have a cohesive plot. Okay. It's non-linear, but depending on how you shape it, you might arrive at slightly different conclusions or point of view on it, but there is a narrative or a plot. We actually have 3 endings for the film, so it's not a choose-your-own adventure. It doesn't change or it doesn't change the conclusion per se, but you're actually, you're just getting a different ending that just shows you a different point of view again. What has happened, but we have 3 separate endings with all 3 characters in all 3 of the endings, and I think it just gives a different emotional note or an emotional tone or a slightly different lens again to the film with the 3 different endings.
How would you go about, I mean this is a new sort of, not medium, but a new way of presenting cinema. How do you go about marketing it or getting people to kind of wrap their head around, right, I could take this movie home and...
Exactly.
How do you go,
Well, that's a really interesting question, and we've also been thinking a lot about it. And what we found is, for example, at the Toronto International Film Festival, we had a series of interactive screenings. And we found that, you know, the audience now, especially with a certain demographic, is really ready for it. And we found especially that there's a lot of relationships to music, the whole notion within the music culture right now, how you do remixes, you know, or you have, you know, people are not only remixing, but they're also doing mashups and, you know, those kinds of ideas. And we found that when we spoke in that language, that demographic got it right away. You know, it's like remixing your own film, or it's like doing a mashup of your own film, you know, and someone likened it to jazz, you know, in that process. And I think it really makes sense for this kind of process because, again, it's not about making something entirely new, but it's working with the elements that you already have and remixing.
And then you recognize.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like an aside, but like the closest thing I've seen similar to this is like when Peter Greenaway did that huge project, and I was like actually really confused by it. I didn't enjoy it. Like I felt it was like something I was not familiar with.
Well, that's interesting you say that because definitely I think you know people like Peter Greenaway or Mike Figgis, you know, and the kinds of leading edge work that they've done inform this process. Sure. I think one of the things that we had talked about is that we wanted to make something accessible. So yeah, we didn't want to. Our goal was not necessarily to make an experimental film that's deconstructing narrative because I think that's been done, you know, and it's been done in the artist community. What we were actually interested in was a traditional dramatic feature film that's quite accessible, but then how can we in fact, you know, insert the viewer into that process or the user and look at the notion of film language and how it works and deconstruct it. But at the same time, we wanted to actually use a traditional narrative because we all understand that language.
I think so.
You know?
It's definitely, this seems, and even just visually, this seems like something I recognize or understand.
Yeah, and that was exactly our point. So we didn't want to do something, you know, obscure. We actually wanted to do something that was quite accessible.
Okay, great. Wow. And it looks fun. Like I feel like it's just a fun idea.
Présentation donc de Late Fragment par nos amis du CFC ici présents. On va aller dans la pièce à côté maintenant. Une installation intéressante.